Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. And we are back. Welcome to episode 4 of the Missing Links Golf Show. I'm Steve Hinks, joined by that magnificent right-handed swashbuckling golfer, Andy Walker. Andy Walker, welcome to episode 4.
G'day, Mr. Hinks. Great to be here. I am super excited tonight. This is going to be a first in the history of our Missing Links Golf Show.
Ooh, pray tell, what is it that is so exciting?
We have our first guest appearance on the show.
Well, that is exciting, and I sincerely hope that your excitement is matched by our technological know-how that we're able to pull this off, because there's no pressure on that. It is a first, absolutely, and with live records, who knows what's going to happen. But before we jump in and introduce this guest, I do want to very, very quickly check in. After last week, we talked about our development plan, so we've now had 7 days to get cracking on these plans, and Andy Walker, any progress?
Yes. Well, I have set up a calendar, and everything's in the calendar, as we were talking about last week. I was taking a pay yourself first approach in regards to my time, so nice. I've now allocated that time in my calendar, which is great. I did have a couple of practice sessions through the week. I had a practice session on Tuesday, and I didn't have my short game on Saturday, but what I did, I went out and played 6 holes and practiced one of those techniques that I mentioned I was going to have a trial of, being aim point. And I must admit, I'm a fan. Probably won't get into it right now, but it's I'm a fan of aim point. I think it's something that I'm going to explore a bit more.
Well, that is exciting, and you are correct. We won't go into that tonight. There's also another very exciting update. As you know, last weekend I had the first competition round of either of us since this show began, yes. And I am very keen to give our many international listeners an update as to whether or not I am still languishing on 10.0 or whether I have crept back into single digits. But
have you got a drum roll?
No, because I'm not giving the answer right now. That is a story.
Suspense.
Yes.
Suspense.
Probably for the next episode, because tonight we are here to talk to somebody who has trod this path before us. And this is very exciting, because I'm hoping that we might be able to learn a thing or two from our guest tonight. This is someone who has risen to incredibly lofty heights in seniors golf. And a man who, Andy Walker, I know you have had something to do with for many years in your golfing career. So I might actually hand it over to you to introduce our guest and welcome our very first guest. Very exciting moment, very first guest in the history of the podcast onto the Missing Links Golf Show.
Yeah, well, this gentleman, he's and I use gentleman very loosely here. And I first met this gentleman in towards the end of 1986, maybe early 1987. So we're talking about 37 years or thereabouts that I've known him. Actually, towards the end of 1987, probably about a month before my 15th birthday, he did beat me in a playoff for the 1987 Mollymook Golf Club Championship. So he ripped the heart and dreams out of a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah, which we'll get to that, I think, during the course of the
interview.
Still in
therapy, by the way.
But I have heard, I mean, I've been to Mollymook a number of occasions, and I've heard down there from some of the long-term members that the 1987 Club Championship was one of the best on record. So they still talk about it to this day.
Yeah, it's part of the folklore, part of the history that's intertwined in Mollymook Golf Club. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Stories about the crying 14-year-old in the car park.
But look, seriously, outside of my family, and certainly growing up, he was probably the biggest influence in my golfing journey, teaching me about the ethics of the game, the integrity of the game, to not give up, never give an inch. Certainly also the benefits of going away and not just playing at your home course, going away and competing at different courses. I remember driving around or driving to various events in a red VK Commodore with AC/DC blaring out of the stereo. It was they were good times.
Yeah,
Great
I mean,
times.
Nothing screams golf quite like AC/DC in a Commodore. Let's be honest.
Exactly. So it is my pleasure to introduce our first guest, Mr. David McClelland. G'day, mate. How you going?
Hey guys, how are things? Hope you're enjoying your approaching 50 odd years, and some people that are maybe a fraction older than that.
Well, thanks, Dave, and thanks for acknowledging that I'm not yet 50. And I like being the only person on the show this evening that's not yet 50, so I appreciate you pointing that out.
It's all right. You can raise your bat later on.
I've got it ready. Don't worry. But look, so exciting to have you on the show. Andy Walker's given us a bit of a rundown about your past, but I've had the fortune to have a bit of a look at your golfing CV, and I've got to admit it is incredibly impressive. I think, though, for the benefit of all of our listeners, could we maybe just get you to start with a bit of an overview of your golf career?
Well, like most of us, when we were young, you play a lot of golf and you achieve a certain level, but life gets in the way. I won the Australian Universities, or as the Americans call it, Collegiate Championship in '82, runner-up in '81, and was selected to play in Japan. But unfortunately, work gets in the way. I started at 17 working. We weren't a rich family, so you had to do that. But probably the highlight was 2019, when I played for Australia at Kuala Lumpur in the Asia Pacific Senior Championships. It's hard to say you get to 58 before you play for Australia, but it really is. It's, when you pull on the green and gold, geez, it makes a wonderful thing. And there's lots of bits and pieces in between, but you can't go past playing for your country.
Yeah, that really is amazing. And I think that actually strikes at the heart of what this show is all about, because both Andy Walker and myself, like I think so many people, we've talked about this before, you have hopes and dreams as a young bloke or a young lady, as the case may be. It comes a point in your life where you realise that maybe those dreams are not going to come true, and everyone either has that as a realisation of a moment. In Andy Walker's case, it was the infamous shank, and we are trying to raise that in as many episodes as we possibly can. For mine, it probably crept up on me when I realised in my cricketing career that I wasn't going to go anywhere special, and instead of being, a decent schoolboy cricketer, I really wasn't anything special in the men's game. But we've got to this point now where we've realised that there's a chance to do something and not just give up on life, but to actually have a crack at things from the age 50, and you don't have to settle for second best. So it is quite inspiring to hear your story, Dave. So thanks so much for joining us.
I do remember having that conversation with you, Dave, a long time ago now, about the fact that you'd never represented Australia. That was sort of one of our conversations. And in I think it was in 1991, I made it to the New South Wales Colts and represented New South Wales at Colts level. So I was sort of one ahead of you with that representative journey. And then all of a sudden, in 2019, you've pulled on the Australian jersey and come back to him and said, "Hey, you're now in catch up, not me. I've been in catch up all these years, and now you've got to catch me, dude."
And it's one of the wonderful things when you can give a bit of stick to the young brigade and make sure that they actually understand that we old blokes can actually play golf, rather than you just chopping around like an old, C grader. You wouldn't want to be off a 10 handicap or something like that. That's horrible,
To be clear, the 10 is not in C grade, okay? Just to be clear. Anyhow, we're not here to talk about me, Dave. We're here to talk about you. So I think the first question that I'm keen to ask is, for someone that's trod this path, what is probably the best piece of advice that you could give for how other people, I don't know, such as Andy Walker and or myself, could follow in your footsteps?
A lot of it is to do with time management. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're in business or whether you're at golf or whatever. I started preparing for 55, and we'll come to that in a bit later on because there's a few variations of that, in the last 2 or 3 years, practicing during lunchtime. So I just happened to accidentally go past a driving range when I was at lunch, just accidentally, of course, and hitting 20 or 30 balls. There's a fellow of mine who turned pro at 50, and for the 2 years leading up to his 50th birthday, he was playing golf 3 days a week, practicing 4 days a week, and getting fit. Now, fit doesn't necessarily mean being Arnold Schwarzenegger, but fit means being fit to play golf, to mentally fit, physically fit, and probably emotionally fit, because golf does take a lot of time out of your day. And that 2 years before you turn 50, and probably the 2 years before you turn 55, and I'll explain that a bit later on, are vital, because my first experience, my first day at turning 55, my first day after, was Royal Melbourne East Course, Royal Melbourne Composite Course, and Royal Melbourne West Course. And that's a reality check. You play those 3 courses and you go, oh my God, I can't play golf. So you really have to get yourself planned physically, mentally, and just organised. That's probably the most important thing.
So is it around time management? Is that what you're saying? So I'm coming back to, I guess, allocating enough time, because we've both mentioned in earlier episodes that time is one of our biggest challenges, being around business, around family, getting the opportunity to play. So is that becoming more structured in that aspect of our lives?
Structure is certainly important, but you don't need hours and hours and hours. If you've been playing golf to a certain level for a long time, if you take 20 minutes or 30 minutes out of your life at a lunchtime or twice a week, it's amazing just having that one practice session. And if you're really lucky, 2 practice sessions, all of a sudden your body is now used to playing golf more regularly. And more importantly, your swing becomes more grooved. It is really as simple as that, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, not 2 hours bashing golf balls. It's just a matter of being there and being involved with it.
And what are you focusing on then in that time? Do you have a particular focus, or are you varying your practice? Are you going to the range sort of between client meetings, or at at lunchtime one day and then short game the next, or how are you going about that practice?
It's a combination of both. If you can get to the practice range twice a week, once is simply tempo, so you're getting your body moving in the right motion. The second episode, if you can get there, is about improvement in whatever that may be. Maybe wedge game, maybe driver game, but wedge game is where your money is. And then a chipping and putting session doesn't need to be during work hours. I try and get at least one chipping session in a week, and with that chipping session, I have a putting session. And the putting session is no more than about 20 minutes. It's the old Jack Nicklaus view. You take your putt from 1 foot to 3 balls from 1 foot, 3 balls from 3 foot, 3 balls from 6 foot. Then you move to the other side of the hole, 3 balls from 1 foot, 3 balls from 3 foot, 3. You can do that in 20 minutes. So it's not about just bashing balls. It's about making your time very efficient at what you do.
See, this is good, because I kind of half the time don't know where to start, and I don't think I'm alone when it comes to that. There's one thing to say I've got 20 minutes that I can set aside to doing a certain amount of practice, but practices, in my view, and drawing on things from other sports and other disciplines, practice is good if you're practicing the right things. Practicing the wrong things, as they say, there's a saying that practice makes perfect. I think the better version of that I've heard is practice makes permanent. So if you're practicing the wrong things, then you're actually grooving problems into your game. So for people, and obviously Andy Walker's played golf at a higher level than I have, and probably knows some of the things to focus on. But for someone like me, playing off a 10 at the moment, what would be some of the things that you would be recommending to work on? Obviously, you know, don't know the ins and outs because you may not have listened to episode 2 where we drive into my strokes gain breakdown. If you have, great. But what are some of the things that you would think with limited time that you might focus on certain areas just to help people out that might not have a plan that they've got as a go-to?
Short game, short game, short game, short game. It's as simple as that.
So driver, did you say driver? Driver.
I said short game,
I'm hearing driver.
Short game, short
driver.
game. Well, if you drive that short, what can you say? But more importantly, I moved to 4 wedges about 4 years ago, and just those 4 wedges, working on those for 20 minutes makes a huge difference because that's where you're going to putt. The other, where you're going to make your profit on the golf course. The other thing is if you make every putt from 6 foot in in your game of golf, you're going to beat most of your people. I reckon you go from a 10 handicap to a 4 handicap by just making every 6 footer that's in front of you. And you can't believe how important that is. You can work on your driver, and everybody says you drive for show. Yes, that's important. But if you get up and down every single time around the green that you miss it, man, you're going to save a lot of shots.
Mm. So
we talked about in that one of the first episodes of when I played a couple of games of senior pennants earlier in the year, and just watching the old guys, you know, they don't hit it that great. You know, they hit it straight down the fairway, but they'll get up and down out of a ball washer. Like it's frightening how good their short games and from 100 meters in. So I can see how you've had that focus. Even 30 years ago when we were playing pennants and the like for Mollymook, you always were spot on with your short game. From 100 meters in, it was just, up and down. And I was always very focused on greens in regulation, and you were sort of the opposite of that in that you were really focused on your short game.
If you can hit the greens, that's great. But if you miss the greens and you get up and down and you hit the other half of the greens, man, you're going to beat most people most of the time.
So you talked a little about putting drills with the 3 balls from 1 foot, 3 feet.
1 foot, 3 foot, that's the Jack Nicklaus version.
Which is good. I'm going to do that maybe even tomorrow morning on the way to work. There just happens to be a golf course between me and the office, and that's the only thing between me and the office, okay? So that's not a bad situation to find myself in. So I might give that a go. I'm interested as well. So this afternoon after work, beautiful afternoon, I thought I'll take the wedges down to a little short game practice area for half an hour and have a bit of a chip and a putt down there, which was good. But I'm curious to know, what should I be doing when I'm practicing my chipping? Are there any similar drills or tips or techniques or anything like that you might share?
There are. And when you come back to it, you've got to find a shot for a chip to the green, chip and run. You've got to find a shot that is onto the green but runs out, and you've got to have a shot that lobs onto the green and plays it. If you have those 3 shots, you are 90% ahead of most people on the golf course. I played a game out at Twin Creeks today, and I hit basically all those 3 shots in about 6 holes. And the fellow said to me, he's from Blackheath, he said, "Where do you learn that?" I said, "The practice fairway." So you need a chip and run, so it hits the fringe and rolls on. You need a 54 degree, for example, as I use it, that goes onto the green and rolls out. And you need a 60 degree wedge that you can hit soft and just relax to the hole. If you have those 3 shots and it's just a matter of practice, it's amazing what it does.
And so by listening to that, you're a proponent of using different clubs for those shots around the green, rather than you hear some people talk about use the same club with different techniques versus...
That's the way I was taught. Billy McWilliam was my old coach from Bellevue Park Golf Club. Billy was old school. In fact, Greg Norman was his trainee pro for about 6 or 8 months until Billy got rid of him because he wouldn't work in an iron lung, but that's another matter. But Billy also produced Bruce Crampton. So you have these golfers, and what his whole thing is, have different shots available to you. You may not use all of them every day, but if you've got them in your bag, you'll beat your fellow that's next to you.
That's interesting because that's very different to what you hear some of the tour pros say these days. It's I've watched a couple of YouTube videos with the likes of Rory McIlroy talking about their short game, and they've got their wedge that they use, and that's the only club that they use for their short game,
Yeah, that's
which
right.
which is quite interesting. Whereas I grew up with the same technique in that I was taught to get the ball on the green if you can as quick as you can and let it roll to up to the hole. So using different clubs to achieve that result.
I would look at Sevi Ballesteros. If you look at anybody's technique, look at Sevi's, because he can play every shot and he has it in his bag. He may not use it every round, but he's got every shot in his bag. And that one shot that he played on the 72nd hole to win the Open Championship, where he's chipped it between two bunkers and
Yeah.
rolled up and hit the pin, and you go, my God, even I look at that and go, this guy's got talent because he's practiced it.
Mm.
And you might not use it. It's like having a red pen, a green pen, a blue pen, and a black pen. You might not use them all on the same day or whatever, but at least if you know you can do it, you can do it. Forget Rory. Ballesteros he's the icon as far as I'm concerned.
Mm. So good advice. Good advice. I am interested though, Dave, to tap into your personal experiences maybe just a little bit more. And just thinking about, obviously, you talked about that preparation piece in the lead up to turning 55. And I read between the lines with that advice. And what I'm hearing is that you're saying if one of us, for example, had a bit of time before turning 50 to prepare, then they would be at an advantage versus the other guy that's already turned 50. So thanks for pointing that out. But what I am interested in is during your experience, like what are some of the rookie errors that you have either made yourself or seen from others?
Well, there's one basic rookie error that I made, and I had no idea until I turned 56 or 57. New Zealand seniors start at 50. So you could actually
Ah,
hop over the ditch and play the New Zealand seniors at 50, whereas the Australian seniors predominantly, and I'll come to that shortly, is 55. So you can get 5 years head start playing seniors golf, playing a couple of events in New Zealand. Now, there's money involved, obviously, but I didn't know that New Zealand senior started at 50. In Australia, the senior starts at 55, except in New South Wales,
fantastic.
where half of the events are 50 and half of the events are 55. So if you can play a couple of events in New Zealand and a couple of events in New South Wales at 50, when you come to the Australian Senior Order of Merit, which starts at 55, you've got 5 years head start on where I was. My 55, as I said, the first day after I turned 55 was Royal Melbourne. I had no lead up. So I had to learn where the entries were, how to travel, and all those sort of things, which the pros learn over a period of time. But if you start at 50, you've got 5 years head start. My God, I wish I'd started at 50 playing a few New Zealand events and a few New South Wales events.
Mm.
So what you're saying is that that the bloke who's the other side of 50 actually has an advantage for the next 14, 15 months because he's got a caddy to play to when he goes and plays it in New South Wales and New Zealand.
Absolutely, if his caddy's good enough to do it, of course.
Wow.
But more importantly, if you can imagine learning the techniques to start at 55, you've got 5 years head start on everybody. You don't need to play 100 events. Just play, 10 events, for want of a better term. And all of a sudden, you actually know how your body travels, how you travel, how you practice, and how you get your mind ready for golf. It makes a huge difference.
So what then are some of those target events that's between that 50 and 55 age bracket? What are those target events that you would suggest that we start looking at and planning for?
New Zealand Senior, first of all, this year in 2024 coming up, it's at the Shirley Golf Club at Christchurch, which just happened to be where Sir Bob Charles grew up playing golf. And
Nice.
there's a great shrine to Sir Bob Charles over there. It's in Christchurch. You'll enjoy it. If you can play that golf course, you can play anything. In New South Wales, a lot of these senior events, I played down at Twin Creeks today. It's over 50. The bigger events like the Lakes Medal, the Australian, Avondale, that sort of thing, that's over 55. But if you play half, some of the events that are over 50, Mona Vale Senior, my local golf club, the Wyong Senior, next year will be 50. A lot of the events like that, you'll get a good start. Like, as I said, I played Twin Creeks today. I thought my little 72 was not a bad little round, par figures. You're thinking, how good's that? 3 under the last 5 for 72. I got beaten by 4 other people, including 2 blokes that shot 69.
Wow.
One of which was 52, 52 years of age. So you don't have to work hard at it. You just have to know how to travel. Is it an hour and a half? How quickly do you get there ahead of your game of golf? I find for me, arriving at a course an hour and 20 minutes ahead of a game of golf is good for my body. Some people might be 20 minutes. You get to learn about yourself, your mental attitude, and your golf.
What about the New South Wales Senior Amateur? That's 50, isn't it? Am I correct in that understanding?
It is 50. New South Wales Senior Amateur is 50, but what they do is they have a little divisor, so you can play at 50. So, as I said, it's at Tamworth and Longyard, I think, next year. But your points for New South Wales start at 50 years of age, but they also divide it so to hand it off to the Australian Senior Order of Merit at 55. So you might finish, let's choose a number, 15th in the New South Wales Senior, New South Wales Senior. But if you're 55, you might have finished 5th. So there's a divisor in that area.
Right.
I mean, when you get to 55, the big events are the Sydney Classic. You play the Lakes, the Australian, and Avondale.
Nice.
How good's that? You play the New South Wales Senior, but you also play down in Victoria at the National Golf Club, 54 holes around the Moona Links, the Old Course, and the Gunnamatta Course. That is probably the best run golf event in Australia. So what you're trying to do is get yourself ready for the really big national events. Just remember, if you're playing the national events, you come back to the state events and they seem easy. If you're playing the state events, then try to complete in the national events, you find it hard because there's some damn good golfers out there.
What sort of handicapper is the cutoff? Because it sounds to me if they're those big, well-run events, you would need to be in the better sort of half or more of the amateurs.
The national, probably if you're off 5 to 6, you'll get in, no trouble. I have seen it go out to about 7 or 8, but let's say 5 or 6. Now, most of the golfers that have played can get to that level. The New South Wales Senior, you could probably get to about 9 or 10, but the Lakes, the Australian and Avondale, you want to be on about 5 to play in all 3 events. So if you think about it, 5, there's a lot of good golfers that have played up to 5. You got to get to 5 and be as safe in everything at the moment. You know what I mean?
It's work to do. There's work to do.
A lot of work to do.
Well, 10 markers can get to 5 with just chipping and putting, mate. Trust me. When you look on the national seniors event order of merit, and the first 20 blokes are on plus handicaps, you go, oh my God. Plus 4.2.
Yeah, that's pretty good golf.
Yeah.
For an old bloke with a bad back and all that sort of stuff,
Oh, excuses, David. Excuses. Now,
we're the injured golfer. That's what they say.
Yeah. Swing easy. Tell me a little bit about the off-course scene on the senior tour, Dave. I'm assuming that there's probably a few blokes that get around that don't mind a bit of a yarn after the round, which might include a beverage or two.
A bit of red wine, maybe.
You never know, and probably can afford it too at that point. At that point in life,
red wine. Have I ever had any red wine? Let me think about this. Look, one of the things that you don't understand. We understand it, but the administrators don't understand. Part of this is not only competition, but it's mental health.
Yeah.
You want to have a competition. So the ACT Seniors is coming up. It's 50, so you got a chance to play in it. And on the first night, the Tuesday night, you go and have a meal with everybody and have a couple of drinks, and you've had one game of golf. You commiserate with each other what you've had, and you have a meal. You chat about things. If somebody else is a bit crook or somebody's wife's a bit crook, you give them a hand. And really, that's what it's about. It's not about belting each other around the head like it used to be with the old Varden averages. And Andrew, you've played a lot of Varden events where you just belt your head against a brick wall. You play hard, but you don't kill yourself. Most important thing is to mix that lifestyle, your golf, and the occasional glass of red wine. Trust me.
So it sounds like there's a quite a close-knit community in that senior amateur tour.
It very much is. And part of our job, my job, the older blokes now getting on, is to bring the younger ones into that sense of being involved, not just there for golf, but being part of the community. And the classic one was years ago when I first started playing. I had this fellow yelling out, "Has anybody seen Dave McClelland?" And I looked around, there's a bloke who joined the same golf club in the same month as I did when we were 13-year-olds. And I hadn't seen him since he was about 25. You cannot take that away. And today I found out that he's being tested for Parkinson's.
No.
So part of my job is to try and help him, if that's what happens, is to make him feel a bit better. And we all support each other. It's part of not only golf, but really what life's about, supporting each other.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Walker, we talked about this right in the very first episode when we were talking about the importance of sport in your life as, in our situation as dads of young kids, and the types of lessons that you can draw out of sport, being involved in sport and around sport that actually serve you well in life. But I think just as important to that is in all stages of life is actually creating that connection to other people and that connection to something that's bigger than just simply your own existence, but, that connection to other people.
And the wives travel with the golfers, which is really nice.
Do they caddy?
When we were young, Andrew, no, don't go that far. But when we were playing the Varden events and the state amateurs and that sort of stuff, in our day, it was like women on the golf course. No, thank you very much. Now the wives travel, they go out shopping or whatever. They drive and they're part of the community. Everybody involves them. And, to sit down with a group of Victorian seniors a couple of months ago, we were sitting down having lunch and dinner with all the wives. It's amazing how much as a community that works.
Mm. Sounds like fun, Andy Walker.
It's interesting because it's one of the things that I've talked to my son about. He's started playing a little bit of golf over the last 12 months, and golf is a very unique sport where you get to spend 4 hours with your playing partners and getting to know them, having a conversation with them, great networking opportunities. But then there's that community within whether it be your golf club or a social group, or in this case, a wider community, getting together and playing events like these senior tour events.
Well, I look at it this way. My wife's into thoroughbred racing. She was at Gosford Races today. She met up with all her friends talking about horse racing and all that sort of stuff. No different from me going to golf. But I call Wyong Golf Club my cheers, where everybody knows your name. And you might walk in there without a wallet, but somebody will buy you a beer. And the thing about it is, you're not there to kill everybody. It's not politics and all that sort of stuff. You're there to really just enjoy your life. You play hard, but you also just enjoy yourself.
Mm. So we've talked about a lot of positive things, Dave. I want to go dark for a moment here. So bear with me. There's got to be some challenges. There's got to be some difficulties. There's got to be some bleak moments that take place out there. I'd like, if you would, for you to take us through maybe what have been some of those biggest challenges that you've rubbed up against since getting into this senior golf.
Well, one of the more interesting ones was a simple airline issue. you're driving out of your front gate to catch Jetstar from Sydney Airport to go down to the National Golf Club.
Oh,
And
dear.
as you're driving
Mistake.
through yeah, well, I know. I've learned
Actually,
mistakes.
before we jump on that bandwagon, I must say that the wonderful people at Jetstar do a fantastic job. Sometimes in trying circumstances, it isn't easy running an airline, but we do appreciate the work you do at Jetstar. Feel free to get in contact at the Missing Links Golf Show on Facebook if you'd like to support the course.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, back to you, Dave.
As you drive through your front gate to go down to Sydney Airport, you get a text and you stop because you can't drive while you're reading your text as you
Good
do.
point. Good
And it
point.
says, your flight's been cancelled. And you go, oh dear. So you ring them up and then you have to work out whether you're going to go to Newcastle Airport, Sydney Airport. You've got to be down to Sydney Airport in an hour and a half, and you know it takes an hour and a quarter. And if you don't get down there, and I said to them, well, you can go tomorrow. And I say, well, that's no good because my tournament starts tomorrow. Well, that's not our problem, quote unquote.
Nice.
So that's one. Secondly, it's the traditional, oh, my back is killing me. Taking drugs. Well, there was a fellow a couple of years ago that had a heart problem and he was taking beta blockers. And people said to him, you can't take beta blockers. And he asked Golf Australia about that. They said no, and they escorted him off the golf course. But there's a way around it. It's called a TUI, which is a therapeutic use exemption. If you have heart problems or whatever, and that drug is not allowed, you apply for a therapeutic use exemption. We all have bad backs. We all have whatever, and I've done that before. We share ibuprofen quite regularly on the golf course just to try and get around.
I think we did that on our last trip up to Port Stephens, but that wasn't necessarily a back. That was more self-inflicted, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Alcohol?
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't want to put a label on it, Dave.
I'll put a label on it because I know what Walker's like, but that's another matter. Alcohol is another issue you need to be aware of. You need to make sure that you don't. There are certain days where if you have a late hit-off, you might want to have a couple of glasses of red. But if you've got a 7:30 hit-off on the 14th hole and you have to walk out there, you don't really want to be in a situation where you've had that extra glass of red wine and it's a problem. Red wine is it's very good for your heart, trust me, but it may not be good for your head.
Yeah, the next morning at 7:30 on the 14th tee.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for your mental health in moderation, of course, and disclaimer, all of these things in moderation. We do not subscribe to any kind of substance abuse or binge drinking culture, but shame that it does have its negative effects. So I think it's wise words indeed. Speaking of heads, though, and we've talked a little bit about this, the mental approach to golf. This is a complex topic. We could probably spend an entire episode on it alone, but do you have any lessons that you've learned over the years and any tips that you would impart to, some younger sub-50-year-old golfers about the mental approach?
The simple answer that I've learned, and it came totally out of the blue. I was playing the Avondale Senior, and I stood on I think it was the 13th or 14th tee there, which is near the clubhouse. And I had this moment of clarity where I went, narrow your focus. We've all heard the term narrow your focus. So I got up there and narrowed my focus from, oh my God, I hope I hit the fairway, to I'm aiming at that tree up the middle. And if you, in that one moment of clarity, get your focus going, it's amazing what a difference it makes. You're not just going out there hitting ball and hoping. You're actually narrowing your focus to a point where you go, that's where I'm aiming, that's where I want to hit it. It's a very simple thing to say, but it's very hard to do that on the next tee and the next tee and the next tee. But if you can get yourself in that mode where, I won't call it the zone, I've been in the zone a couple of times, but this is more along the lines of, I am practicing mentally to aim at that point. That makes a huge difference.
So that's a good start, but the ball doesn't always go where you aim it, at least in my experience. So
But if you practice it, it will.
It will get closer, but there will be times when, regardless, and we see this in the PGA Tour still, that regardless of intent, there are going to be wayward shots. So, how do you go about preventing the frustration of that bad shot from festering and affecting the next shot?
It's easy, and Andrew knows this and all that sort of stuff. Can you do anything about changing that shot? No. Can you do anything about changing the next shot? Yes. So why worry about the past? Just look for the future. It's very simple.
So are you telling me that throwing your club doesn't actually improve the outcome of the previous bad shot that you've hit?
No, but it improves your future shot because you're getting that frustration out of your system. And if you don't break the club, you can actually use it again.
Well, there you go. Everyone's a winner. On the other side of the spectrum, though, is the good days. You know, you're playing well. You know that you're in front. Okay, you're on the 16th tee. You've piped one up the middle. You kind of feel like, I reckon I'm about 2 or 3 shots in front here. What are some techniques that you have implemented to prevent yourself from thinking about just getting to the clubhouse and getting the round over and then capitulating?
I think I'm still learning that. I had the same situation down at Thaguna in the New South Wales Senior this last week. I just watched my horse win a race on the back of the 16th green, thinking how wonderful is that? That's a nice bit of money in the bank account. And I thought, right, I need 2 pars to make the cut. Snap hooked it into a rough, up to my knees. And I went, you know what? I've done this too many times. So I'm still in the L plates in that area. I'm still learning. Some of the time it's having a go-to shot. And I thought I had a go-to shot, but my go-to shot didn't work. So one of the things that I worked on leading up to 55 was a go-to shot with my driver. Can I hit a fade? If I hit a fade, it's on the fairway. And sometimes all you got to do is have a shot that you can put the ball down and go, I can play that shot and I'm in there and I can get it on the green, 2-putt, 4, walk off, be happy. But I'm still got an L plate in that area.
Yeah, that's a shame because I was really hoping that you could answer that question for me. That problem would go away.
It's the holy grail, really, isn't it?
There's no magic things there, trust me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I have another question. Sorry, Andy Walker, to dominate asking you a couple of questions, but
that's right.
This is one that's we've talked about. Andy and I have talked about in previous episodes, and it relates to club fittings. So, do you have a view, Dave, on the importance or lack of importance on getting properly fit for clubs?
Look, I think the way technology has changed over the last 30 years. When I first grew up, it was sort of like, that looks good for me, I'll play with it. These days, there is the refinement of irons, the refinement of drivers, and to be perfectly honest, the refinement of putters is quite extraordinary. When I grew up, the putters, you never knew about face balance putters or toe balance putters or heel balance putters. And, you know, you have pros in Sydney now that all they teach is putting. And same in the US Tour. Drivers, like you can hit a driver off the toe these days further than you used to hit it in the old days. And the irons, I believe you should still get fitted for them, but it's the old saying, beware who's fitting you. Are they actually good enough to know you as a person? I'm a field player. Andrew Walker is a technical player. So you've got to get a person that teaches you or fits you for what you are. And that's what it's all about. Yeah,
very interesting. We've been having this debate. My firm view is that Andy Walker needs to go and get a driver fitting. I don't know if you've seen him hit his driver recently, but
it goes a long way.
Goes a long way, but there is that snap hook that sneaks in every now and then also.
Yeah, yes. Long way left.
Yeah.
Yes, so I do understand that. And look, I don't disagree with you there, Mr. Hinks. I do. That's one of the priorities is certainly the driver and the fairway there. And we've talked about the 3-iron, maybe putting the 3-iron away and getting a hybrid of some description in there as well. And yeah, that is going to be my first port of call when I start the consideration around changing clubs and upgrading.
I watched Peter O'Malley play at the New South Wales Senior Open at Thurgoona last weekend, and on two par threes, where I hit 5-iron 2, he hit hybrid.
Mm.
Now, Peter O'Malley, you can't complain about his knowledge of golf and everything like that, but he's hitting a hybrid. Now, that hybrid might be a 7 hybrid, a 9 hybrid, an 11 hybrid. But that ball went on the green both times. And I'm thinking, well, I hit 5-iron into those holes, and he's hitting hybrid. So
we did talk about then. We did talk about having the 4, 5, and 7 hybrid. So are you saying that I should be then getting the 9 and 11 hybrid as well?
Is there such a thing?
Depends how much practice you want to put in.
I didn't realize there was a 9 and 11 hybrid, but this is a new piece of information that we'll have to digest.
11 hybrid, is that something like a 48-degree hybrid?
No, it's about a 7-iron.
Wow.
Excellent. I like it.
Well, there you go.
But if you remember when we were younger, there used to be a 7-wood called a Heaven 7. And that used to have 2 rails at the bottom of the club that would allow you to go through the rough a lot better.
I do remember that.
And
did it work?
They're coming back to that again.
Don't Cobra do something along those lines, don't they? They've got They're
coming back to it, yeah.
I think they do. We have had a fantastic chat, Dave. We're pushing the 45-minute mark on this episode, which we know is around about the sweet spot. But I could talk to you all night. This is, maybe over a glass of red at one point. We might actually do that.
Sounds wonderful.
Is there any parting words of wisdom that you feel that you would like to share? Anything that we haven't covered?
One thing I would learn if I was coming into the events is learn how your body travels. The old idea of hopping on a plane, getting down there at 6 o'clock at night and hitting off the next day doesn't work anymore. If you look at all the really good golfers that are coming along, they'll arrive a day ahead of time. They won't practice on that first afternoon. They'll just maybe go and have a putt. Second day, they won't. The day after they arrive, they might just have a nice small session, and then they'll play because they've done all their work the week before. And if you look at the Olympic swimmers, they taper for events. They practice hard, and the last week or so leading up to the event, they taper. So if you can learn to taper your golf, so you practice, your heavy practice is done 2 weeks ahead, 3 weeks ahead, and you're just coming into it and just maintaining it, that's where you'll actually improve your golf, I think.
I feel like I've lived a lot of my life in a heavy taper, but that's a story for another day. And I do like your point about understanding how your body travels. I think it was the great Shakira that said, "My hips don't lie." And I know that when I've been sitting in a vehicle for 4 or 5 hours, I'm pretty stiff when I get out at the other side. So that is good advice indeed. Andy Walker, any final questions for our record-setting, groundbreaking first ever guest on this Missing Links Golf Show?
No, I've just about covered all the pieces of information that I was after. But no, that's been a fantastic session, fantastic piece of advice there, little gold nuggets that we'll have to digest and maybe talk about a little bit further in future episodes. I certainly think that, well, from my perspective, I've learned an enormous amount tonight. So no, I really appreciate your time, Dave. Looking forward to catching up very, very soon and having another game of golf and potentially a glass of red after it.
Might have to have a glass of red very, very soon. What time tomorrow are we eating off? Oh, that's another matter.
Yeah, it's another matter.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. They say they do say that there's no substitute for experience. I think, broadly speaking, that's true. But tonight, I feel like the substitute has been using somebody else's experience, and we really do appreciate you sharing that with us this evening, Dave. I would like to say a huge thank you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being our first guest. I think, if at all possible, we'd love to have you back at some point, possibly after one of your next major tournaments, if you would be interested in coming back and letting us know how you go. Because if we can't quite get there yet, we'd at least like to live vicariously through your experiences. So it's good to be able to call you a friend of the show, and hopefully to have you on again soon.
Steve and Andrew, thoroughly enjoyed it, and if I've helped somebody, that's what it's all about.
Well, we hope you have.
Thanks, mate.
You definitely helped us. Definitely helped us. Andy Walker, I think that's us for this episode. It's a cracker. I look forward to listening to that. I'm going to listen to that on a number of occasions and suck every piece of knowledge out of that I possibly can. And we will be back next week to have a bit of a reality session on how our prep is going, and look at how some of our performances have been going over the last week or so as well. So I thoroughly look forward to that.
We do have the Missing Links Masters at the end of the month, so we're ramping up at the moment, but we've got to remember tapering.
Got to remember the taper. We've got to have a plan to taper into the Missing Links Masters. This is a good point. So for those of you who have been listening along in each episode, we talked about this a little bit in episode 1. But ever since the Missing Links Social Golf Club was inaugurated in 2008, we've been playing once a year for a magnificent green jacket that was purchased at St Vincent de Paul for $10 and now has approximately $750 worth of embroidery on it that's been added each year. Andy Walker won it last year.
$765.
Oh, it's on, is it? It's on.
Yes, it's on. It's ready for me to pick up tomorrow, which I'm going to do on the way to the golf course.
That is exciting. We might get a photo of that on the Facebook page, if that's okay, Andy Walker.
Absolutely.
And we will be contesting the Missing Links Masters on the beautiful fairways of Mudgee Golf Club on the 24th and 25th, or is it the 25th, 26th? It's around about that time frame in November.
25th, 26th, I think it is.
25th, I think we arrive on the 24th. We play 25th, 26th.
Yes.
We look forward to that.
Arrive the day before that. You should arrive the day before and just ease your way into it. Remember, your body's got to get used to it.
This is true. Work and family commitments are limiting. Yeah, 24th. Well, it is. It's 24th arrival. Very relaxed evening, possibly a bit of stretching, a bit of yoga, a bit of meditation. I need to fill you in on the meditation as well next episode. That's coming along nicely. And we will be, not only will we be building up to that in the next episode, we will be covering that live from the range at Mudgee Golf Club. That is exciting. Get on board. Ladies and gentlemen, that is enough for tonight. It's been great, and we will talk to you soon. But for now, strap yourselves in, because here comes the Electronic Rock King, our royalty-free theme song. So Andy Walker, see you next week.
See you next week.